Buongiorno e benvenuti. Welcome to Art Yoga Pills with me, your host, Dinny. In this space, we will connect and share together about creativity, inner child, and self-awareness. Siete pronti? Enjoy! Ciao a tutti, kia ora, and welcome to a new episode of Art Yoga Pills. Today I'm not alone. I have here with me Kevin Harper from Changing Mind. How are you, Kevin?
Oh, kia ora, Denny. I'm very good. Thank you. Glad to be here. Wonder why you invited me, but very glad to be here. Thank you.
Well, you are the CEO of one of the company here in New Zealand that I appreciate the most for what has been contributing to my growth, and so I wanted to have the major person to share about this organization with me. So thank you, Kevin, for being with me today. So
Thank you. I don't think I'm the major person. I'm just the front person at the
the
moment.
front person, yeah, that's a good way
That's right. There's
of
well, there are a number of people behind me who are far more important than I am, I believe. I genuinely believe. Yeah.
And thank you for that. This is just motivating me to keep on searching and having conversation with more people. So thank you to want to open the space from changing mind.
I mean, sorry, Denny, but it says on my job title. I don't like job titles, you see.
Mhm.
They're labels and they don't tell you who they are, who you are. It tells you what you do. And CEO is on the job title label. But that doesn't tell you who I am. And so I prefer to use chief enabler, putting on the C and the E, a chief enabler, because I think that's more my style. I don't feel myself to be a natural leader at all. But if I can enable other people to lead, then that makes me feel good. And so, yes, I
Wow.
prefer chief enabler rather than CEO. But there are rules around these things.
I understand, and actually, thank you for giving this wonderful explanation of how we are labeling people, but that doesn't define the person. And you just opened the space for me to go ahead with the first question, which I hope it will be easy and is related with you as a person, so that people might connecting a little bit deeper with who you are. And so my first question is, who is Kevin? And then it's completely up to you if you wanna go to the personal path, to the professional path, combining them both together, or just be creative with whatever you wish to share today.
Who is Kevin is not a simple question. Of that I am of that I am sure. Um, None of us are simple in terms of our journey. To the journey, I mean, I think who is Kevin is defined by the journey. The professional and the personal are strongly connected. Um, it seems more traditional often to start with the professional response. Maybe I'll start there, but I'll try to weave in the personal. And the reason for that is because my professional career, if that's the right word, I'm not even sure what that means. But my working life is odd. I've seemed to have a liking for jobs with funny titles that nobody understands. Maybe that's back to the labels point of earlier. So I've done some strange things. Professionally, I started my working life as a medical illustrator or medical photographer, more specifically. I can't draw, to be quite clear. And that was about the use of images, particularly photographs, in the teaching in terms of health. So early on in my career, I guess I had a strong interest in health and a strong interest in visual communication, which I wasn't particularly good at, but it made more sense to me. I did that for many years, and that was in England. I'm from England, in various parts of England, uh, and then I moved here because I couldn't do that job anymore. mainly because there was no career pathway for me within it. And it was easier to change jobs. Such a big thing, isn't it, to change a job and to change a direction, if you will, maybe rather than a job, to change a direction. I was on a direction defined by my job, and then I needed to change it. And it was easier for me to do that by moving country, than it was to give up what I already had in England and start again. And so I traveled. A great way to do things anyway. I traveled and had the chance to go around the world 1.5 times. The second half time, I got to New Zealand and stayed. So technically, I'm on holiday because I came here on a holiday and I haven't really been home properly since. I then went about trying to find a new career, and that wasn't easy. I'll be honest. I tried different things. I worked in sales, and I was never going to make any money in that, so that stopped that very quickly. Then I worked in human resources, and I wasn't very good at that either because I couldn't do the turning people off bit, so I didn't really take to that. And then I discovered study. I didn't do university. There's a reason for that. And I discovered study, and I studied public health. And whilst having public health, my professional and personal met, I realized that for many years, decades, I've been running away from a number of personal challenges, and they caught up with me. And it was then that I experienced a reasonably prolonged period of depression and anxiety and general disruption to life. That's taken me quite a long while to get on top of. But it was because of that experience and because of public health that I then was able to start a career here in New Zealand in government agencies, working for ACC, working for the Ministry of Health for a long time, and then coming here. So personal wise, there's that connection in terms of my lived experience, which started at school, which was based in bullying, and I carried with me for a very long time, and ignored it. Was able to ignore it, which is a privilege in itself, of course, but nevertheless, it caught up with me. But I discovered that what really mattered to me was people and a really good understanding of how to communicate or engage with people in a way that listened to them and made them the center of work rather than other interests like what the system wanted to do or what the service wanted to do. So became quite people focused. Being a medical photographer, your job in hindsight was effectively to take something that people were possibly most ashamed of or embarrassed by and take a photo of it. And so you had to really learn to communicate, and you had to really learn to put their needs and wants before your own. Yeah. I'm sure that answers the question, but that's yeah. And personally, still on a journey. No idea who I'll be. Couldn't possibly tell you. Never thought I'd be a CEO or chief enabler.
Wow, Kevin, but your journey is quite impressive. It kind of remind me my own. Being in a journey, doing a job for several years, and then when decide to change the life path, doing it in another country. So I quite resonate with your life experience. My journey was as a graphic designer, and then decided
Mm-hmm.
somehow that I was not resonating probably with the system and the place I was working for, but instead of changing office, I changed country and restarted from scratch to see what else there was out there for me. So I kind of like that there is a similar background, including the fact that I started to study here as well in New Zealand. Not a university career, but skipping university to
Mm.
gain money early in life, and then
Yep.
now
Same.
finding myself so curious about everything that I decided as you to invest my time in doing something that will keep my mind and heart open for curiosity and knowledge to gain. So I always love to share this question because it's the one that open up such a wonderful world of who we are beyond, as you said, the job title. So thank you for
So
starting.
can I ask a question?
Of course.
Is that allowed? Um, so when you left
Hmm.
and decided that, you know, it was time for a change and to travel as part of that change, presumably, did you know what you were looking for, or did you just know you were looking for something?
Wow, I really like your question because it truly brings me back to that time. I knew that I was unhappy and I
Mm.
didn't know how to move forward. I was
Mm.
lucky enough that my sister at the time was already in Australia and she was pushing me to a similar journey. But it took me 1 year to know if I was making the right choice by leaving what I knew and not knowing what I was going for. And I guess I used traveling as my opportunity to discover what else I was interested in, but not truly knowing what the path was going to be. I knew that because I chose Australia first, doing farm job was the easier way to get a second visa, but was not exactly my life purpose or the reason why I left. I guess I left because I was uncomfortable where I was, and I was looking for something else, but not knowing what that was, if that makes sense.
Oh, it makes complete sense. It's a way better answer than I gave, and it's a beautiful, to me, beautiful example of how that difference between that professional and that personal, that the personal courage to understand what you feel and how you're feeling, and to know that it's not quite right, for that to override the professional, which is the demands of title, status, career, those sorts of things. That's something that I think is we as a society could value much more, right? People and people's willingness. And maybe we are. Maybe the younger generation is doing a much better job than mine did and I did. But it fascinates me how you need to be able to reflect and keep reflecting and keep reflecting, and through that reflection you grow. You quite often don't know where you're going to finish up. There are some jobs that have a very linear career path. Medicine is probably one of them, but there are very many now that you would expect to jump all over the place and hopefully follow your heart a bit more, perhaps. I don't know if that's the right
Absolutely.
word.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, Kevin. I truly resonate. And now that we are sharing about those titles, that was probably what I was still looking for initially, not knowing that there was a whole world out there that was out of the comfort zone and out of all those labels. And just by enjoying life or facing the challenging that life was giving me to reflect on, it was still much better than looking for another title, another label to put on my shirt, and it makes sense how it then it became something else. Then it became more than a career path, more like a life purpose or an intention to be a better person, but not necessarily connected with any labels.
Yeah. Although
Mhm.
that is hard, isn't it? So I'm thinking again, Denny. Sorry, I'm a thinker, but that is really hard because if you start something new, I don't know, something like art yoga, and
Mm.
you do that from your passion, from your beliefs, whatever drives that, then you find yourself sat in front of organizations or proposals or systems, and suddenly you've got to have a name for yourself. Right? You need to have, so you become, I don't know, founder or director or something. So the system is always still asking you to conform. You still have to speak the language of the system in order to get what you want out of the system. And you can't just have your own language. You're not allowed to just float. And that's something that I'm learning a lot of in the new role. You know, the different languages you have to be able to speak to get what you want. And to stay true to what you believe. Yeah.
Absolutely. I have so many new titles just with the project of Art Yoga, including a podcaster. And that was
Yes.
not exactly, intended to be the way that I was willing to communicate with others. But it's absolutely correct. I resonate with your sharing of still needs to define myself, but it feels slightly different. I have also the feeling of being on holiday myself, even though I've been 5 years in New Zealand. And maybe because English is not my first language, everything is kind of enhanced a little bit. Even giving myself the title of the co-founder of Art Yoga. Oh my God, what that means! So I absolutely resonate with you with this sharing. And I guess that probably to move a little bit forward, but still remain connected with what you shared about your life experience and how challenging was for you to become to realize so many things that you thought they were not part of your present, but still they sort of haunt you from the
Yeah.
past. You
Yeah.
mentioned lived experience, which is something that is way common in the in organizations such as Changing Mind, but I understood through Changing Mind, especially what lived experience meant in the context of mental health. And I wonder if you could share your own description or understanding of what lived experience means for those who have no idea of what we are talking about, and
Yep.
especially when we say that is within the context of mental health. Because lived experience, it could be, of course, every lived experience that we have every day, but what is sort of the difference between the one that is connecting with such organization as Changing Mind, Rakau, Roroa, for example, from our day-to-day life experience? If
Okay.
this,
You don't
makes sense.
ask easy questions, do you, Denny? Is that right?
Sorry?
You don't ask easy questions, do you?
And mind that they are not even like a short one, it's like a description of a concept.
Oh, I like it. Thank you. It's a big thing to ask. Answer. Let me have a go. It's not easy. So, I think I think the starting point is that your initial question has set for me the understanding or the reminder that we are moving forwards, moving towards journeying, whatever description you like, yeah. But we're not stood still. And lived experience or experience is like that. It's something which accumulates, right? It's something which is growing over a period of time. And that's obvious, but it is important that you're not talking about a moment in time. You're talking about moments over time, whereby you are developing your understanding. So you don't reach a point of lived experience. We're still going. It is still active. We are still learning. We are still reflecting. I think to me, and partly through, well, actually, I have to say, much of my career has been in roles which had nothing to do with lived experience. They were just job titles. There you go, classic labels, nothing else. And then you get this label that is the Ministry of Health Principal Advisor lived experience. So then you get two identities. You principally advise and you have lived experience, right? And so that's interesting that they're labeled that specifically. And it took me a while to try to make sense of all of that means. And I think that led to a distinction, and I talked to many other people around this. The wisdom is not mine. And I have too many people to name, but there's a lot of people that I speak to. The wisdom is that I moved from a personal experience of mental health, something that I lived on my own, and went through. And in my journey with that, I strongly discovered a need to reflect and to understand and to look back to move forwards. And I started to move towards something which was new. And in that time, I started to connect with others and I started to make sense of my own journey, make sense of the personal elements of that journey, but also make sense of, I use the word system elements and service elements. So where I could get help, who would give me help, what worked for me, what didn't work for me, what I needed. And I come from a very privileged position, really. I could largely afford to pay for my own support. I was able to go to counselling and support myself to go through counselling. So I'm aware that it was a very lucky position. And it gives you a chance to reflect, however. And so I come to make sense of my personal experience in a context of a much bigger system and service and society thinking. And I got to meet other people with a personal experience. And I got to find out that my personal experience and their personal experience and other people's personal experience had some interconnection. And that's when I think you're getting into a lived experience, right? You're getting to a deeper understanding of what it was and what it is to journey with your mental health distress or addiction or whatever else it might be in life. And then there is a very definite decision or definite point whereby you want to do good with that knowledge. Whether you want to do good in supporting others with like experiences through peer support, whether you want to take that into what I do and work in engagement or whatever it might be. You might work in your community. You might set up your own organization that seeks to support people. There's all sorts of ways you can use your lived experience, right? But you've made a very definite decision to do that. And so to me, lived experience is part of that journey from a personal experience to a deeper sense making collective understanding of what it is to have a lived experience of mental health, an ability to understand other people, compassion and an empathy, and then a desire to want to do something with that. That's what it means to me. And we're all at different points in that journey, and we'll all move backwards and forwards. It's a journey. It's a moving. So I can wake up tomorrow morning and discover a new part of my personal experience and need to sense make that and need to work out what does that mean to my professional practice, etc. It's not like you suddenly reach a sense of all-knowing knowledge.
Thank you for that, and especially the last part of um, not gaining a final knowledge. It is the same revelation that I became aware of, that I there is not an ultimate goal for now, and it's still a life journey experience that I wish to embrace with this up and down and see how that will make me either stronger or more capable of taking care of myself and others. So I really want to acknowledge the sharing you did about lived experience. I received all sorts of different answer about it, and I love the initial reflection that you did about taking that moment to pause, noticing what is going on with us, and then decide if there is something that we wish to do in order for us to either get support or doing something anyway about that can be sustainable for ourselves.
Yeah, can I add something to my
Of
answer? The
course.
reflection, you see, I did say that I like to reflect. That's what I've done. I think that I mentioned collective, and I think that if you have a lived experience, there are things that you unify that bring people together about that experience, right? So they will be that we might have a particular shared worldview. We certainly have values that really matter to us, right? So values that certainly I would talk to would be things like mutuality, right? This is not about one person having power over another person. If you come from a lived experience perspective, things are mutual. Power is shared. You talk about, or the lived experience will talk about self-determination, which means that you lead your own recovery, you lead your own journey. It's not for someone else to intervene. So these perspectives of the world that have come from our lived experience and are shared through our lived experience, and these values and the practices that might come from them, or what identifies lived experience, and to my mind makes lived experience not simply another identifier on a list of people to talk to, but actually something of real value, real contribution, which is why I took up the role that I have. Lived experience can offer a worldview that complements a system worldview and complements a service worldview to bring a real strong understanding of people that will make things better. It's not about one or another, it's about and you need to have a system with lived experience and services and people's views, and not one dominating another. Mutuality, strong to achieve, but I think that's important.
Thank you so much, Kevin. And I don't know if it's just my impression as an immigrant as well to New Zealand, but I've noticed that here it's quite strong, that sense of connection with people through lived experience, in a sense that is something that empowers you more than you still need to hide what is part of your journey in order to either get a job or to have an opinion and be entitled for that opinion. I don't know if that is just my impression, but I find that in New Zealand, it makes me feel safe to share who I am and what is my past, although it might not be something that someone else might be proud of, in relationship with our struggle and our um, fight for who we are and what we stand for. I don't know if this makes sense, if this is also your impression as
Yeah,
also
I think
someone that doesn't come from New Zealand.
I, I certainly hope that's true, and I certainly think that's true um, for some in certain circumstances, perhaps, and I suspect it is not true, sadly, for others. Um, we, I am lucky to work in and with a community of people with lived experience, so I see the strength of it all the time. So it doesn't still surprises me, but it's still I understand that other people don't, and so I don't doubt. Well, I know we all know that prejudice and discrimination, as well as self stigma, but prejudice and discrimination will definitely be uh, lived out in society, lived out in the workplaces, lived out in communities. Not only, of course, in mental health and addiction, but in an interconnected way as well. And I think a lot of people have quite difficult journeys with it. And although mental distress and addiction is becoming more acceptable to talk about, I fear that we will end up with prejudice and discrimination within that context. So some things will be acceptable to be spoken about, and it'll be acceptable to be going or doing well, less acceptable to be struggling, and less acceptable to have had perhaps a more acute episode or more acute experience. I don't know if that's true, but I do worry that we will start to move what is acceptable and create and maintain prejudice and discrimination. But I think that New Zealand, I think, with a cultural connection that is brought by Te Ao Māori, positions the people of New Zealand and New Zealand in a much more healthy, holistic, heartfelt way than other countries. And then England was my experience, definitely. Yeah.
Thank you, Kevin, for that. Yeah, it's also about perspective, and probably this was my journey here, and that's what I observe. I've been asked how is the Italian system, and I have to admit that probably I didn't need it while I was there, and so I don't have
Mm.
much knowledge
Mm.
about it. But here I came across to several organizations, probably through Art Yoga, and I become more aware of how comfortable I was to share part of my story that I've been hiding to myself sometime for a long time.
So something is being done right somewhere. So
Hmm.
that is something to celebrate. I agree.
Exactly. So that's why I'm committed to keep on having these conversations, such as the one that we have together right now, to be able to spread the word and possibly the knowledge that we have to share and inspire listeners for for their journey as well. I believe that we do
I'm
in
sure
our
you
own
do.
way. Yeah, both of us.
Yeah.
Maybe in connection with you and changing mind, I was wondering if there is for someone that is in New Zealand and perhaps wish to connect to changing mind but doesn't know exactly what this organization is and what are the offerings that the organization give out for people that might need support. Is there any way that you could describe what a changing mind could be about for the support of one another in the community?
I will. Yes, I'll give it a go.
Thank
And,
you.
I mean, I should point out that I still consider myself to be relatively new to the role, less than a year, and so this is a an understanding that it's been fascinating to emerge over a period of time. So we talked about prejudice and discrimination, and self stigma, and to my mind, that is the greatest thing that drives us, right? Historically, is the prejudice and discrimination that you will find within the health system, within society, and in general, right? And its connection to a general sense of mental well-being. So, if we're about things, it's about prejudice and discrimination. Well, that's the end goal, and within that, you consider rights and people's rights, and are they being appropriately respected, and so on and so forth. Um, we first and foremost, we are and we have to be people and community, right? And I should be really honest, Denny. This is my nature. Preface with this: this is an ideal description. I'm not claiming that we are where I would like us to be. This is where I think we are moving and strengthening and journeying. But first and foremost, we are people and we are community. That people is lived experience, that community is a lived experience community. And we work with that community kind of in two ways. One is that we can support well-being through mutuality within that community. So we are not a health service. So we don't come to us and say, can you solve the problem for me? But we may very well have people in the community who you could connect to, and we may very well have other means of providing support, but we're not a health service. So we create connection. People are able to support and maintain well-being. As you said itself, it is high and it is low, it is good and it is bad. People build that connection. That community essence is really, really important. If you've got a community that is well connected, people feel that they belong to that community, and you have a well-being, you also have a voice. You have an ability to use that for change, to take action, to see some social action if you can. And that's also what we do. So on one hand, we might be supporting well-being through community. Also through our community, we take steps to advocate for change, especially where that relates to prejudice and discrimination and rights and those areas, but right across health and across well-being. So not only in the health system, but more broadly. You can connect well-being and action through education. So another way of thinking about this is if you are taking from the community and we take knowledge, right? the community has wisdom, and we use that wisdom for action. So we have to give back to the community. One way of giving back is to support well-being. Another way of giving back is to use the wisdom within the community and outside of the community to educate each other. Right. So if we educate, we can hopefully help people to strengthen their well-being, help ourselves to strengthen our advocacy, have a more impact. And those are kind of the areas that we cover. What you would see us do is we provide information. So if the people listening are in the community and they want to understand an alternative way or options for support, they might seek information from us, or they might seek resource from us or resource from within the community. If they are a member of our community and have a sense of belonging to the community, they might exercise their voice, their ability to have a different opinion or an alternative view by engagement. So they choose to engage in the way that we do things. We might engage in hui, often through hui. We might also engage through more formal evidence-based or research-based, information-based way. So we do engagement. We also do evidence, so surveying, that sort of thing. All of that is taking and helping to take the knowledge from the community and turning it into action. So if we are anything, or if we want to be anything, we are a strong community that you belong to, that supports well-being. We are engaging to amplify people's voice. We are building evidence that supports what it is that we hear people say, so that has a greater impact on our policymakers or our service providers or whoever it might be. And we are educating people, constantly thinking about how people can learn about that story, that change. Key to a lot of this is storytelling. And that could be storytelling, of course, in whatever way suits you. So that could be storytelling in words, that could be storytelling in pictures, that could be storytelling in video, that could be in all sorts of ways. Making people make sense of their journey, understanding what they went through, and hopefully creating some change by it. Quite long. I need a quicker answer than that.
Oh no, that was perfect. So it helps me as well to understand more. I've been collaborating through the project of Art Yoga with Change in Mind, but it took me as well quite some time after a year to understand what am I into. And it's beautiful the way you put it out, because it combines many of the things that to me are also important, which can be community and well-being and connection.
They're interesting. Sorry, Denny, I'm doing it again, but I do reflect that I can't help it. They are, so on one hand, if you have community, on the other hand, you have some form of service delivery. And if that's connected by a belonging, then you don't know where the community wants to go, and you have to respect the wishes of the people of the community. Right. So this is the whole beauty of it. You don't know what I think is not more important than what the community thinks. Quite the opposite. If the community is telling us that we should go and paint all cars red, and I like green, it's tough. Right? Red it is. That's the way that's the constant mutuality of the situation. How do we balance these things? How do we have these conversations? And we don't do it as well as we would like, but we will get better and better at it over a period of time, because it's the knowledge and the wisdom and the experience and the expertise that we have in our lived experience and our life that we will utilize to make change. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I really like your reflection back. They support my conversation with you in a stronger way. So thank you for keep on reflecting back. Don't apologize for it. I'm really blessed that I have your support. Another thing that I wanted to ask you is related with Rakau Roroa, which is tall tree. That is my way that I initially connected with you, the way that I met you. And it was a beautiful project that is related with changing mind, but is a sort of different branch. But also that one is about lived experience, is about supporting people to gain more knowledge, especially on on the aspect of missing the word right now in English, the stigma and
Yeah.
uh, you use another word before, but now it's
Oh,
completely missing.
prejudice and
Prejudice. Thank you. Prejudice and
they're not
stigma.
they're not everyday words, are they?
They're similar in Italian. I don't know why they don't come to me. Imagine that.
Oh, I feel like I've learned a bit of language. This is good. Um, yeah, Aoteraoa is it's core to who we are and why we do what we do. It is a training program that is really targeted at that sense making from a personal journey to a lived experience journey that helps you to make sense of um, what you understood personally and put it through a well-being lens um, using Tafari Tapafa and or other models, cultural models, appropriate models, personal models that helps you to make sense of your well-being holistically, but also encourages you to think about the prejudice and discrimination that you will have experienced or may have experienced or may not have experienced. Indeed, there's learning from what you don't experience too, of course, to reflect on what worked, what didn't work, how you felt, what it meant to you. And that prejudice and discrimination, that ability to reflect helps you to shape your own story, to come to understand your own story, your own journey, and helps you to be able to use that story however it fits with you in whatever it is that you do. So you might be using it as part of a new career change or a new work change, and it forms a basis to your art yoga, making sense of that. You might be using it in just making sense and even applying for a role helps you to understand, how do I want to talk about this? How do I reflect on this? How do I make this a strength in what I do rather than a worry about what I do? The strength in lived experience moves me emotionally. If you walk into a room with people who understand their lived experience, who understand their personal experience, and understand their lived experience, I think that you can feel the strength in that room. It's touchable, it's tangible, it's real. Right. And I think that is quite a beautiful thing. And I hopefully Rakau helps people and groups to travel that way. The tall trees element is the community that forms and that you become part of once you've been through the course. So it requires you to have gone through the course, which means it's a little bit exclusive, but it hopefully will increasingly hold people together. And it's a group that we will strengthen and work that we will do to strengthen that. But it gives people a chance to share. So it combines our community aspect, it combines our knowledge, and it utilizes education, and then supports us in terms of engagement. And everybody in that community makes some form of contribution. Whether that's acknowledged or not, I don't know, but they will do inevitably. Will use their lived experience to contribute something.
Thank
Um,
you, Kevin. Oh, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you.
no, the powerful group, wonderful, wonderful people.
Absolutely. And I'm happy myself to be part of that forest, the forest of Aotearoa made by all of us.
I think there's an awful lot of opportunity from that way. It's built in as I said earlier, the perspective or the values of lived experience. I think that has an enormous potential. I'm really pleased that there will be courses coming up throughout well, next financial year. So what does that mean? That means from around about July this year through to June of next year, 2024, there will be more courses either face to face and or online for people to register for and to participate in, and they'll be able to do that through Changing Minds website. Um, and we will promote that. So I'm glad that can be really pleased that can be active again. So yeah.
Yeah, and the link will be also available in the description of this event for
Oh,
whoever wish to directly go from here to there and being
wonderful. Look at that.
connected. Uh,
Technology connected. What an important word. Yeah. Brilliant.
yeah, and this technology, we should use it at our own advantage when it's possible. So I'm happy to contribute and spread the word out from my side as well.
Likewise. Thank you.
Arriving at this point, since we are about to reach 1 hour, and I didn't ask you earlier, how long do you have available? Because we can go on and on forever. But I wanted to ask you if there was something that you wish to share that we haven't not touched yet that you feel is important to give space to. You can also say nothing.
Well, I don't have anything else, Denny. You are everything, so that's right. I'm in no rush. No, I don't. I don't have anything that I want to promote or whatever. I think that there are two words that I would share.
Mm.
That, if I may, this is a little bit me on my high horse that I think are really important, and our community have also supported are really important for mental health and addiction services and or response as we move ahead. One is just to remember that whatever word you want to use, recovery is a moving towards. Right? It is a journey. And so we have to remember ourselves that we keep expecting a moment in time for people to be well. People are going to be well, they're going to be less well, they're going to be distressed, they're going to be not distressed. And right now, with the world as it is, distress is not uncommon and needs to be acknowledged for that. So we need to learn to live with those ups and downs that you talked about. And I think that sometimes we respond at a point of severity, reduce that, and then disappear. Right. And so that means that the other word that I would use would be options. We build a system and a service landscape that provides options no matter where you are within your journey, which is why something like art yoga is so beautiful. What a great way to work on continually, as I understand it, and I haven't done it, I should be honest, but work on your well-being and as a way, as a means of continuing to journey. So you can have that as an option. So if you have a kete of managing your well-being, coping with your stress, you might want any number of things. You might want a little bit of art. You might want a little bit of writing. You might want horse riding. You might want all sorts of different things that you might want to support your well-being, as well as access to a service. I hope we can build a response that has three component parts. I will shut up after this, Denny, I promise. Those three components are really quite simple. I want to see system of services that are available to give you a hug when you need a hug, that hold your hand when you don't need a hug. So if you're having a hug, or the system of services holding your hand, keeping you close, keeping you connected, still caring for you. And then that there's a means, a community means or another means of people walking beside you when you're okay. So you're never on your own. Right? And so we do the last bit, we do walking beside you. That's what we do. I'd be interested to know one day where our yoga fits. Maybe between that one and holding hands, bit of both, perhaps. Don't know. But that's how I like to think of it, you know, because we all need a hug every now and then. We all want to hold hands every now and then. And sometimes we want to be on our own, we feel great. But it's good to know that someone's behind you. And if I fall and if I wobble, there's somewhere for me to go. Yeah, there you go. That's it.
Wow, Kevin, thank you. I have to admit that I had a little bit of goosebump when you were sharing about the hug, the holding hands, and stand one beside the other. I resonate a lot with the way that we sometimes we are conditioned to see life in a way that we are expecting at some point to feel good and feel better of whatever we have experienced, and then to keep on going on that ride, on that journey, not knowing that as for I don't surf, but I assume that when you're when you're riding a wave, it's a moment, and after that, it might be another wave that puts you down again. So if we are open to remember ourselves that life is quite unpredictable, and we can organize ourselves for the future, but not knowing if the future will holds what we wish for, we can still work on our present and see how on a day-to-day basis we can cultivate copying skills, tools, support connections to keep ourselves motivated to commit to our well-being day to day, even when it feels so challenging that then we need a hug, a holding hands, or someone next to us to remind ourselves of that.
It tells us, I mean, selfishly, of course, I've thought about this for a long time, but the analogy tells us both to me what I would like, but it also tells others how I want to be received. Right. So when if I am struggling and I am really finding it hard to cope for whatever reason, and I'm going to see a medical professional of whatever nature, then I want to be greeted with a hug, metaphorically, right? Not with an accusation, not with an intervention, but with a hug, someone who cares and is compassionate for me. If I walk in, so that's how I want to be greeted, as well as how I want to feel the service to be. Zen is exactly the same thing as holding a hand. You know, I am sure that if I walk into our yoga session, that there is a hand holding, that there is a coming together, that there is a connection. I am sure of it from what little I know of you. And that is important because that's how you're received. Right. And so that makes the whole experience thereafter different. Yeah. So if you're welcomed with a hug, your experience of what comes is different. If you have your hand held, what experience comes is different. And if you're constantly being supported, you know you've got a safe place to go back to. Right. And so we can do that. So it works both ways, or works in every direction that I have so far thought of as a way of understanding expectation. Yeah.
I couldn't find the button to unmute myself. There you go. But yeah, absolutely. Like something that you were shared also earlier about that mutuality and sense of equality, I would say as well,
Yeah.
that we're reaching out to a friend, even if it's a professional, with the hope that that person that is welcoming us is doing it with all the best of intention and with as much as care for us as we might have for ourselves as well. So absolutely resonating with your words.
It comes down to the words of expectation.
Mm,
It's a word that I used a lot. I have expectations of system and services, but at the moment, the system and services tells me how to behave. I have an expectation of how it should behave. I want a hug, and I want to be treated accordingly. Yeah, it's not easy, but it's something to aim for.
absolutely. That's one way that we can become better, also having something that we wish to achieve for ourselves, and probably use it as a personal experience to then do a ripple effect to all those around us. Ready for the final question if you are, which I told you there was a secret, but
Yeah,
in a way I felt that there was already so much wisdom that you share. So now it's gonna be just a little bit more of what you share through this final question. The question that I would like to offer you is based on the way that we are concluding the session of Art Yoga, although it's been revisited to fit the purpose of a podcast. The way that we conclude Art Yoga is normally by thinking about three grateful things that we wish to celebrate on the day, but instead of grateful things, to make it more, let's say, interactive, so that is welcoming also our audience in the space. is to share, if you like, three empowering messages that you wish to offer us. And you might wish to include also yourself in that empowering messages, me and everybody who is listening in this moment. And also, no matter how small or big they are, I feel that everything is valuable. You already did some of that. So if you want to say, okay, I'll pick those one and bring them back, they are completely fine.
Wow, that's another small question, isn't it? Three empowering messages. I feel so right at this moment, it sounds like my house is about to fall down because my daughter is crashing upstairs. Hopefully, you can't hear that. So I think I'm not sure it's empowering, but I don't think it is empowering. But it was being said to me before by again people with great wisdom. The question to ask yourself, or question to be asked, is not only what we tend to get asked what is wrong, right? How are you feeling? What is wrong? So, question that I would like to hear people ask themselves to prepare is what matters to me? And the connection here is who matters to me, right? And so I think of my daughter upstairs, who, despite the fact she's trying to ruin the house, does matter to me very deeply. And I think if you understand what matters to you and who matters to you, then that might be helpful in the way that we journey. So that's one thing. I said before, I don't think I'm doing this very well, Denny, but I said before that what matters is that this is a journey, and keep taking steps is the important thing. Right, time is something that we're not really good at acknowledging. So if you know what matters and you know who matters, and you're willing to give yourself time, then I think that that's really important. This is obviously a message in terms of lived experience or what worked for me, perhaps. I didn't know any of this at the time. I didn't do any of these things on my journey. This is all things that I wish I had done. So I didn't know what mattered. What I thought mattered was alcohol. I didn't know who mattered. And so I was lost. I didn't understand the journey. So I thought that I was falling apart on a day by day basis. And I didn't understand that I had that I had options, that I could make my own decisions. And if I'd have known of an art yoga and or something else, that might have made all the difference to me. All I knew was, well, pills, because that's what I was prescribed. And they were and maybe very, very important, but there are other options too. You can have and conversations. So perhaps the final point is there is no one answer to whatever it is. It's always an and and an and and an and and an and. So I need what matters and who matters, and I need time, and I need a selection of options that I haven't worked out. And then I will have moved towards something. There you go. It's a
Wow,
tough
that's a
question.
tough question, but you handled it pretty well. Want to acknowledge that, and as usual, I really love this part of the sharing because it's something that I use it for myself first to inspire myself with the wisdom of others, and hopefully also do that ripple effect that I'm hoping for with what we share to empowering other people through our own journey, our own experience, and our own empowering messages. So thank you, Kevin, for yours. I really appreciate not just this bit of our conversation, but the whole time. I I truly appreciate the time you gave me for this conversation, and I truly enjoy also the fact that you've been curious enough to ask me question as well, which is not that common, but it kind of lead us to a deeper connection, I guess, where it just doesn't go one way, but it exchanged through different opinions, including my one. So thank you for that and acknowledging the time and space with me.
I have many more questions for you, but I didn't ask them. I wonder when you will be the guest on your own podcast.
Oh, that's a really nice question to ask. I don't know yet, but that's an interesting one. I will need someone to lead for me so that I just
Yeah.
need to be present. Oh, but that's an interesting question. Do you have any more question for me?
No, I
Because
don't know.
it
I'll
feels
take.
like already I'm I'm a guest, and that's a good feeling.
Yeah, no, I'll spare you now, but I would have many if I had time. Yeah. Mm. Thank you.
Anytime. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. It
Thank
was
you.
inspiring, and it is wonderful to be asked to give time to reflect. It's a gift that you've given me for my day. So thank you. It'll be the highlight of my day.
Oh, thank you so much. I feel the same way for our conversation. I was in front of the computer 30 minutes to begin, and I was like, what I'm gonna ask, and I'm so grateful that I had people such as yourself that give time and space to have this conversation with me, because I believe that we have the power in our own way with our own words to contribute to someone else knowledge and spark their enthusiasm for something. So thank you for sharing your enthusiasm with me and bringing it live together.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you very much.
And
Appreciate it.
thank you for everybody else who is listening in this moment. I hope you're gonna have a great, great day.
Grazie per averci fatto compagnia. We hope you enjoyed your time with us. If you wish to stay updated and connected, visit us on our social media channels and our website www.artyoga.co. Ci sentiamo presto! Ciao!